Started now since it is 5:30. Welcome to the class of 2020 and also the class of 2019, 2016, 2011, and any double Bruins. My name is Cesar Pacheco. I'm the University Relations Chair for this year, and I joined ULAA in 2018 after graduating. I first joined ULAA by joining the Finance Committee, and then after joining ULAA and that committee, I decided I wanted to get more involved and make a bigger impact. And as the University Relations Chair, my main goal, my main job, and my committee's main goal is to find a way to help support students that are on campus. And so we've had events such as coffee drives during finals and also career panels throughout the year. And I do want to talk a little bit about how this event came to fruition. First of all, we had one of our board members participate in a similar event that was pertaining to career advice, and all our board members suggested that we should do this and move forward with it, and especially for the class of 2020, since there is a pandemic and since there is a lot of uncertainty. And so we tried our best to make this event happen. I want to thank Soleil Delgadillo, our past president, who helped me organize this event. Also Nikki, who is our community relations, who also helped organize this event, as well as diversity programs, who they are full staff and they support us 100%. From technical things like Zoom meetups or any marketing and advertising that we need. And lastly, I want to thank Rasa grad for collaborating with us and helping us advertise the event, market it, and also sending out emails to the class of 2020. And, I'm very glad all of you guys are here. And here's the agenda. After me, Andrea Arias will talk a little bit about Rasa grad and have some opening remarks and words of wisdom for the class of 2020. And then Joseph Blancas from the Alumni Career Center is going to talk to you guys and give you guys some resources. And then we're going to get into the panel discussion that is moderated by Soleil Delgadillo. And I just want to add one last thing, that we do have committee meetings, and I'm going to put in the chat box who the committee chairs are and who you can reach out to. And before I do that, I want to recognize the Tonga land people, as we as the UCLA Alumni Association acknowledge the Tonga people as the traditional land caretakers of the Los Angeles Basin. And we are grateful to have the opportunity to work for the indigenous people in this place. As a land grant institution, we pay our respects to our ancestors, our elders, and our relatives, past, present, and emerging. Thank you so much, and I'll move it on to Andrea. Also, just feel free to read that. We are a nonprofit, volunteer-run organization, and we're always looking for volunteers. So if you do want to get involved, reach out to our committee chairs or to the Instagram page or LinkedIn page or our Facebook page. And that info I will add to the chat box so you guys can reach out to those chairs individually, should you want to volunteer.
Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Andrea. As a part of this year's Rasa Graduation Committee, I am honored to take part in this space. Mecha de UCLA's Rasa Graduation collaborated with the UCLA Latino Alumni Association to create this event of resources for the graduating seniors, especially our Latinx seniors, to aid them in their post-grad journey into the workforce during these uncertain times. Before beginning, we have two quick updates. First, everyone is expecting Rasa graduation packages. The delivery time is going to be in August to mid-September, depending on where you live. And in addition, we as the Rasa Graduation Committee will be planning to meet with administration this fall to continue communication about planning the in-person graduation. And as always, we will continue to update you as soon as we get more information. And if you have any questions, you can email us directly. I'll go ahead and text those updates in the chat as well as the email where you can reach us. And next we have Joseph Blancas from the Alumni Career Engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Hi, everyone. My name is Joseph Blancas, like Andrea mentioned. I graduated from UCLA in 2014 with a degree in gender studies. I am the program coordinator on the alumni career engagement team at UCLA. Our team provides students and alumni with relevant career resources and opportunities for professional development and networking. Today, I'm just going to share a few resources available through your alumni association that might be helpful in navigating your job search during this time. I'll also include the links to the various websites in the chat box, and I believe the presentation will also be shared in a follow-up email. Next slide. The first resource I'd like to share with you is our job search starter kit. It provides templates for resumes, cover letters, and email correspondences that are all downloadable. You can customize them and build upon them and make them your own. Next slide. We also have our job search and networking resources page, which offers a plethora of links to free resources, along with a recording of our Career Conversations webinar, Effective Job Search Strategies During a Pandemic, with UCLA alumna Emily Bax. She is the principal at Bax Consulting and a career counselor at the University of San Diego. So some of those resources will include informational interviewing guides, LinkedIn guides for networking, UCLA Career Guide, UCLA Career Center resources, as well as online learning and skill development resources. Next slide. And then if you are a recent grad, we also created the tools for your 2020 job search website. It just has some additional resources that will help guide you through a successful job search. Some of the things to highlight here is if you are a new grad, you can continue to utilize the Career Center services for 3 months. So that'll include one-on-one appointments and drop-in sessions. You'll also have access to Handshake for alumni for 1 year after your graduation date. So you'll have access to job listings and entrances into career fairs and networking events. So be sure to take advantage of these two resources now, because they won't be available for free after those timeframes. Next slide. And then one of the last resources I'd like to share with you is UCLA One. It's UCLA's online career community. UCLA One is your one-stop shop to meet your professional needs and connect with UCLA alumni. For those of you who might not be familiar with UCLA One, it's free and easy to sign up. You can use your email address or an existing LinkedIn, Google, or Facebook account to register. Next slide. And Bruins want to help Bruins. You can find job and internship opportunities, as well as network with alumni or seek help or advice. So you'll see from the data here, there's over 300 job and internship postings. There's over 43,000 users, and of those users, 45% of them are willing to help. So it's a great platform to be a part of. Next slide. And just to go through some of the features on UCLA One, there's a directory, so you can search for alumni by degree, grad year, industry, company, community, and so much more. So it's a great tool to use. Next slide. We also have the job board, like I mentioned, so you can search for jobs by job function, industry, location, and that's updated with new jobs daily. Next slide. We also have our businesses and services feature, which is a free platform for you to promote your company's services. So maybe you have a hobby that you make money off of on the weekends, or after your full-time job, or a side hustle that you would like to promote. You can totally do that on this platform for free, so that Bruins can take part in your services. You just click the start posting button and create a profile for your business. Next slide. And then one of the last features is just the messaging and requesting help feature. You can literally find someone on UCLA One and message them directly, maybe requesting an informational interview, or asking them for advice So Soleil here, she's willing to help with networking, introductions, company insights, and industry advice. So you can shoot her a quick message and ask her about those things, and find out more about her company and things of that nature. Next slide. And then just the last thing to mention, we have an upcoming event with our Alumni Career Network, Acing the Interview on August 19th. So if you're interested in participating in that webinar, I will share the link to register. And then we have upcoming in fall 2020, our Young Alumni Career Launchpad. This will something we launched earlier in the year, but it will be in a digital space. But the program is geared towards young alumni, 1 to 3 years out of graduation, kind of looking for a review of their professional development basics, so resumes, cover letters, networking, and the goal is just to provide you with a strong foundation of career education and just sharpen those professional tools. So look out for that. It might be taking place near you. Well, actually, it'll be online, so it'll definitely be something you can participate in wherever you are. But yeah, that's all I had today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Joseph and Andrea and everyone for being here. Again, I want to introduce Soleil Delgadillo. She'll be the moderator and she'll take over from here. Thanks, Soleil.
Thank you, Cesar. Thank you, Joseph and Andrea. My name is Soleil Delgadillo. I graduated in 2009 with a bachelor's in sociology and minor in women's studies. I am very excited to share the panel with you all and just share lessons learned, as we also had to navigate uncertainty when we graduated during the last recession. So without further ado, we're going to just start and jump into the panel. Panelists, if you can share your name, pronouns, any identifiers such as first generation, your current position and industry. So we're going to start off with Denise.
Thank you, Soleil. Hi, everyone. My name is Denice Gonzalez-Kim. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I guess the way I would identify myself, definitely starting with my parents. My parents are originally from Mexico. I was born and raised in South Central Los Angeles. And I'm a first generation, todo, everything. First generation, everything. I graduated from UCLA undergrad in 2008. I would say at the height of the recession. And I've had multiple jobs, lost count at 13. And I also have an MBA from UCLA. I now work as a mergers and acquisitions consultant for EY Parthenon, and I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's, can you guys hear me? Yeah, good. My name's Josh Boudreau. My pronouns is him, his. First generation, my mom's from Costa Rica. First generation college student. I graduated UCLA in 2009 with my bachelor's in political science. Finished my master's in public administration from Chapman in 2011. Current position right now is professional medical sales rep in healthcare industry. And that's it.
Hi, everyone. Juana Sanchez, UCLA class of 09. I also identify as Chicana Latina. I'm a proud first-gen alum of UCLA, and I hold a master's in public policy from the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. I currently serve as the senior associate with HCM Strategist, which is a national consulting firm specializing in K-12 and higher education policy, and I focus on higher education. It's good to be with you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sergio Orzinski. I identify as he and him. I was born and raised in San Francisco from a mom from Spain and from a dad from Nicaragua. I grew up speaking Spanish and learned to speak English in school. I think I was like 6 or 7. And I double majored in psychology and economics. Immediately after graduating, I embarked in a 7.5-year career at Target. So I did management there. And for the last 3 years, I've been a full-time real estate agent. So I can speak to you guys about management as well as what it's like to be an entrepreneur in real estate. Glad and honored to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So question number 2, and these are questions that most of you all submitted, so our panelists are answering them today. But question number 2 asks, what are some of your career and professional goals that you had for yourself before you graduated from UCLA? Denise, can you kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, let me just preface everything I'm going to say on this call by saying that my life is like a series of unfortunate events. So everything is like what not to do. I went to a business magnet high school, so I knew that I eventually wanted to go into business, and I also got a lot of help, I would say, from nonprofits. And so I was dabbling between those two, but frankly, I had no idea what the heck I wanted to do. I was a scared child. I was excited to be at UCLA. Huge imposter syndrome, even being at such a huge university. And I just wanted to graduate.
Thank you. Juana.
I can jump in. I think similar to Denise, I early on was exposed to certain things that relate to my current field of interest, education. I'm a proud Head Start alum. My mom worked for Head Start for a number of years, and one of my older sisters, I'm the youngest of 6, was a high school teacher. And so early on, I was exposed to education, and I recognize the power of education to really affect opportunity and individuals' life prospects. But when I got to UCLA, I didn't necessarily know how to translate, my degree in English in American literature to a career in education. And the one thing that I knew was I did not want to be a teacher. I didn't think that that was really where my strengths lie or my long-term interests. And so somewhere along the way, I discovered through courses and through work with the Academic Advancement Program, this idea of undergraduate higher ed retention and higher education public policy. But again, I didn't really know how to navigate that field and how to crack into public policy specifically. So even though I had a sense of what I wanted, what my vision was, I still kind of thought of public policy in a really narrow way. I thought about policy makers and influencers as just those people who are elected in office. I also knew I didn't want to go down that path. And I thought about policy as, what happens in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C. So even though I had a sense of vision, a sense of purpose and values, I didn't quite know what would lead me to the type of career that I have now. And I have to say that that's okay. It's actually only been until recently that I feel like I've been doing the type of work that excited me as an undergrad. And that was a 10-year process in the making.
Thank you. And I know in our run through, everyone has contacts. We did a run through and we kind of had a therapy session talking through these questions. And I know, Sergio, if you can go off next because you had a similar experience.
Yeah, definitely. So ever since I can remember, way back from middle school days, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I used to call myself like a little young hustler. So I would buy, boxes of Starburst, the M&Ms, the Snickers, and load them up into my backpack. And then, I would sell them at a margin. So that's when I really knew, that's kind of informally how I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And then at UCLA, one of the most amazing things about the institution was just how many motivated and like-minded people I encountered, and my friends and I, we started this company called Black Swan Investment Group, and we bought like Apple stock, but this is back in like 08, 07 for like $120 a share. And if you guys follow stocks, we were dumb to sell, but we did that. And then, 09 happens, and really that idea kind of just, took a back seat. And then I listened to what my dad told me, and what I kind of grew up hearing was take the safe route, get a stable job. And so I went to the career fair at UCLA, and I landed with a great career at Target for 7.5 years. And now finally, almost 10 years later, now I'm doing, what it is that I really want to do, which is be an entrepreneur, help people invest in real estate and create wealth through it. So it took a while, but, don't give up. Life isn't always a straight shot. You have to kind of take some twists and turns.
Thank you. And Josh, if you can share your story, because you're kind of going full circle for yours.
Right, right. So I identify with like what Denise said. My life has been a series of unfortunate events that led me to where I am now. I grew up in the Santa Fe Springs area, so like Whittier, Norwalk County for perspective. Um, I actually lost my brother at 12 years old, so it felt like that was a threshold whether I would go right or left because you're just dealing with so much anger, hurt, and pain. So I definitely funneled that, that passion into school. Right before I got into UCLA, I actually was shot at a house party, believe it or not, which actually pushed me even stronger to know that if I wanted to get out of the neighborhood that I was currently in, that college was the only way. It's funny because after these events, when I went to UCLA, that was the first time I ever seen a college. I didn't have any parents that went to college, or nor did we have the ability to travel and see colleges. So it was definitely very new to me. UCLA was very overwhelming initially. It took me about, I think, a couple of years to really understand the way the system worked. Initially, my goals for UCLA, I wanted to go to law school and actually be a district attorney. Unfortunately, during 2009, the economy really tanked. So law school was about 160 at the time. I came from a working class family and just didn't make sense mathematically to get myself in that much debt with a job that wasn't going to be able to afford me to really pay off that loan and be comfortable. So I went into grad school and knew that I was going to have to take a lot of free internships and work oddball jobs until I got my wheels starting to get traction into my career. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Thank you, Josh. Navigating as a first gen, which I think all of the panelists are, including myself, navigating the last 10 years definitely has been challenging. So for question 3, reflecting on your final years of college, please talk about your experience job searching during a recession. How did you know that America was in a recession, and how soon or late did you start? Sergio, you kind of already touched upon this about going to the Career Center. Can you share more?
Yes, so I knew it was a recession because I wrote a paper on subprime predatory lending, and I just, my dad reads the newspaper like crazy, and he was just telling me, hey, you're going to have to move back, to San Francisco once you graduate, because there's no way you're going to be able to find a job. But I knew, deep inside that my opportunities in LA were going to be much greater than the Bay Area, just simply because I had just spent 4 of my years, interning. I tried to intern every summer in college. So the summer between freshman and sophomore year, the summer between sophomore and junior year, et cetera, I was always trying to intern. But what really helped me was simply going to a career fair. Just, it was a career fair that was going on. I think it was a week long or 2 week long. And from that career fair, I landed 2 job interviews, and I actually got both of them. And I just ended up choosing Target. At the time, they were paying $50,000 a year plus like a $5,000 bonus and healthcare and little things like that. Right. So I was like, hey, that sounds good. I should be able to pay off my student debt in a couple decades. And and no, so I did that, and it was good. It was great. What I can share with you guys is that when there is a recession, anything that's like on discount, like a Walmart, an Amazon, a Target, when people have to budget, they're going to go and shop in places like this. So I think that's why, Target was hiring so much, because people were buying, they still had to buy their essentials. So, yeah, that's kind of how it all played out. I graduated, or I finished my last course at UCLA December 11th of 2009, and I started working at Target January 11th of 2010. So I was very fortunate, that I went that route.
Definitely. And for those of you who joined a little bit later, the Career Center did do a presentation at the beginning, and we will send out those slides so you can access the Career Center and what opportunities you have. But let's go the other way. I know Denise, totally different story.
Yeah, so I guess, I was thinking about it some more since our therapy session, right? And I was thinking, like, why the hell didn't I know we were in a recession? And well, if you think about it, I'm from South Central, grew up really poor, like I grew up all my life in a recession. That's the way I saw it. And so, something that is happening at a grander scale is not really, it really wasn't changing anything for me. And I was still working 4 jobs as an undergrad. But here's the story. Hopefully it'll make people in this feel better about themselves. It was 1 week before graduation, and I was sitting around with my friends. We were doing our senior thesis, and everyone was going around talking about what they're going to do after graduating. Some people were still taking LSATs, GMATs. I had no idea what any of that was. But of course, you know, me being the save your face kind of person, I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And then when it got to me, they're like, well, Denise, what are you doing? Where are you going to work after when we graduate? And I said, I'm just weighing my options. And I remember like packing my stuff really quickly and like just marching up to the dorm in my head, cursing. I'm not going to curse. Well, I already did. But anyway, I was cursing up a storm. Like, how could I not know that I needed a job after college? So anyway, I went to Yahoo. We didn't have Google then. And Yahoo'd or whatever we had, how to get a job or what job, something job, right? And I ended up applying to this program where you went to go teach English in Korea. So I was like, okay, gotta do what you gotta do, right? Got the hustler mentality going. And so I would say, I don't know, a couple of weeks after graduating, I was off. I was off to South Korea to live by myself and teach English in the countryside. Then I came back in 2009 and still the recession, right? And by then I knew that it was the recession, and it was hard. I think I took about 6 months trying to find jobs, and I could tell you all stories about these interviews that I went on, but I digress. But one thing that I did learn that I want to share with everyone here is one thing that I did learn that I did bad, or that I could have done better, is I tried to do it alone. And I would say that would be my tip. Don't try to do it alone. You not being able to find a job is not a reflection of your worth or just any of that. Please reach out to us if you don't have any mentors. Yes, I'm signing everyone up on the panel, and I don't even need to ask them. I know their game. Reach out to us. We're here for you to support you in that journey. And so, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Don't do it alone. And I think many of us in our stories experience that. But Josh, do you want to continue on yours? Because I feel like you could talk to that.
Sure. Yeah, I too was struck by the recession bug. My story, so I one of the things I really neglect is not being more, I guess you can say, involved when I was at UCLA, and I didn't talk to many folks, and I tried to do everything alone because I didn't know how to do it any way else because I didn't have a mentor. So first of all, get a mentor for sure. Don't be as stubborn as me. Secondly, before I get into this, you guys got to give yourselves a pat on the back. I mean, you're going to UCLA, first of all. How many people did you have to beat out to get there? I mean, let's keep it real. That in itself is amazing. Like, that's hard to do. So let's first and foremost do that, because I always forgot to do that. Secondly, you're in a really tough market. That is not any excuse. That is, we are dealing with more. There's less jobs. There's more competition. You guys are battling people like myself that jump around and have the experience. So my final year, I found out I actually got an internship with Cedars-Sinai, actually my junior year, and it was for $55,000 at the end when they offered it to me. And since I thought I knew everything and had just talked to one of my, my suite mate, she said, oh, I just got an offer for 75. So I'm like, so can I? So I said no to the Cedars-Sinai job. Then when we went to graduate, I was waiting for everyone to call me because I was a UCLA grad and I was naive, and no one called me, and I was left with nothing. So yeah, I realized quickly we were under a recession, and I knew that, well, I started job searching right away, but I also started applying to grad schools. I know it's a later question, but when I did select a grad school, I made sure that it was a grad school with working adults. That way I could market and talk to folks instead of doing what I did at UCLA, which was kind of stick to myself and think I know everything. So yeah, definitely learned the hard way. But beyond that, guys, just remember, you guys are either at UCLA, are graduating UCLA, or graduated. That is huge. And you'll see that when you go into these interviews. People respect the Bruins.
Thank you. And the next, Juana, in our run through, you had mentioned an article from the New York Times, which I thought was really interesting to share as you answer this question.
Sure, and I was mistaken when we last spoke, so I did go back and look it up, and it was a piece in the Washington Post that struck me. And yeah, I think just reflecting on Josh's comments, it's really important to recognize the context you're in and to give yourself credit and to not be so hard on yourself. And I was struck by that same thought as I read this article in the Washington Post that called millennials, so essentially, my fellow panelists and I, the unluckiest generation ever, because we had come of age and tried to enter the workforce at a time where the country was just in such a horrific recession. And frankly, class of 2020 graduates, what you're facing is probably going to surpass what we experienced. And I probably had a limited awareness of that at the time, but what I knew was that my brother, who had graduated from Cal State Long Beach the year before, had struggled to find a job and had moved back home, unable to find work. And I really was panicking. I was fearing that I would similarly need to move home for reasons I won't get into here. That just sparked a lot of anxiety for me, the idea of being back home. And I, was frantically applying to jobs. I think I was applying to jobs. I should say I was a December graduate. I ended up deciding to postpone or delay my graduation from June to December so that I could apply for a scholarship, the Truman Scholarship, which provides funding for graduate school. And it felt like a gamble to me because I didn't know if I would get it. But in retrospect, it was probably the best thing. I did get the money for grad school, we can come back to that. But interestingly, as a December grad, I was competing with less college graduates, right? May, June is graduation season, and that's when everyone is on the job market. And so in some ways, I kind of missed that. I finished in December and I started a new job in January. And one thing I didn't know at the time too, and this is advice I've heard before and I've been wrestling with and thinking about this panel, is the advice of, just take any job. It's a short-term, unusual, kind of once in a lifetime global pandemic, which is certainly true. And again, goes back to this idea of not being too hard on yourself. But what I didn't know then that I know now is that your salary history really does follow you. And in many ways, that first job, that first offer will then affect or shape your next job offer. And so the good thing that I can share with those of you who are going to stay in California or hope to stay in California for work is that now in California, it is illegal for employers to ask you to submit your salary history and to make your employment offer based on your previous salary history. So the idea is you should be paid for the job that you're going to do, what you're qualified to do, and employers should not be taking advantage of the fact that you graduated in a tough job market and had to maybe settle for a job that wasn't paying what you're really worth. And I think that's part of the reason why that Washington Post article was saying it was toughest for us millennials, in the sense that we haven't quite made up the earnings potential that we should have made up at this point in our careers.
Definitely, and I think, the point of this panel is to share lessons learned of what we all went through, so you all don't have such a steep learning curve. We just retweeted on our Latino Bruins Instagram handle about a webinar that one of our alumna is hosting, Angelica Gutierrez. She is teaching folks on how to negotiate their salaries. So if you take a look at her Instagram, and we'll also put it in the chat box, check out her session on how to negotiate your first job, because your salary does follow you. Cool, thank you. So for question 4, we'll move on. So what tips do you have for being resilient during this time? Is there anything you know now that you wish you had known back then? And then Josh, I'm gonna pick on you and tease out, the piece that you said that you just didn't really connect with different people at UCLA.
Right. And before we touch on that, I just want to let you guys know, this is the HR guy bugging me, and I'll touch on that. Guys, First of all, it's okay to not know what you want to do. I literally have been an admin manager in HR for the county, internal affairs for the fire department, union rep. Now I'm a medical sales rep. So HR guy in me, guys, use what you have in your resumes and tease out your strengths or what have you, and do not answer what you made before. That is highly illegal. You can bargain with these folks and they can never, ever, ever ask how much you've ever made. So that's a good thing. That was a recent win for all of us. So yeah, I didn't network. I guess I was too stubborn. And I also, my mistake, and I'll be honest with you guys, I never fit in. I felt like I fit in at UCLA. I lived 26 miles away, but it was worlds apart. And I let that deter me. I let I'm Latino, first generation, I can't identify with anyone, I'm going to do it my way, deter me from, not necessarily having to join a frat, but being more part of school spirit, creating those lasting relationships like Sergio did. I'm glad to know that most of the panelists here, I remember them from school and they were always so nice to me, but I never really engaged. I would always go back home. I was homesick. I was a mama's boy, So I would say network. One of the biggest things you can do right now, unfortunately, I'll let you guys know, it's not really what you know right now, it's who you know, because there's 1,000 of us competing for the same positions. And that one person that can creep open the door a little bit for you, it'll let you come in and really prove yourself. Anything that I wish I knew back then, yeah, not to be so hard on myself, and it's not a race. I actually opted to finish in 3 years and 1 quarter, and I slept in my car my last year. And not because I was poor, but because I wanted to save money and not go into debt, and I was too stubborn. If I would have redo it, I would have studied abroad. I would have studied and went to the classes that I thought were interesting. I would have spent more time on campus. I wouldn't have treated it as just a chore, but as something that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. An opportunity may have you, or a once in a lifetime thing, guys. I know some of you folks may be super stoked to be at UCLA and everything's super good. Some are like me. I was lost, didn't know who I was, and just wanted to get out. I'll challenge those that felt like me. Give it a little time, get involved in something, find your passion, don't rush it, and see how it feels. Kind of feels reinvigorating when you feel like you have control of something in a market that's uncontrollable. And just remember, you're not able to control all the factors and variables out there. So just control yourself and know that, in due time you'll get there. I like I said, I came from nothing. I'm making it. Am I still hustling? Absolutely. You gotta hustle. But just remember, at the end of the day, you are a UCLA grad. I can't stop stressing that. That gets you into the doors. That's it.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah, it's definitely network. And, if you didn't network during your UCLA grad days, some of you are current students, some of you just graduated. I know all of my jobs have been because of someone I knew at UCLA. They made that introduction. And, that's why we're hosting this as the UCLA Latino Alumni Association, for you to either get engaged or just go onto UCLA One and we'll figure it out together. But I do want to go on to Sergio because I think he has some really good advice.
Thank you. So yeah, for being resilient during this time, I know a lot of you guys may have lots of loans that you took out, have a lot on your plate, but I still want to encourage you guys to empower yourself and learn as much as you can about financial literacy. At least when I was at UCLA, there wasn't a class like that taught you ways to protect or boost your credit score. There weren't really economics classes that taught you about cash flow, residual income, stocks, buying property, things like that. These are all things that may not happen, next year or right away, but you guys should all have these goals because, UCLA gives us a lot of great tools, and those tools can only be enhanced if we make the right investments. So I've seen a lot of my peers, because they're entering into a job market, they let go of their credit score. Things just kind of fall by the wayside. But there are ways to avoid that. There are definitely ways to avoid that. So I recommend that everybody research, what goes into a credit score. Read books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. reach out to me. I talk about it a lot. I do these little videos on Instagram. Every 2 months or so, I host a wealth building seminar where I talk about practical things. For example, if you guys were to sit down with a lender, you'd be surprised how easily you would qualify for a loan if you took certain steps. May not be in a month that you would qualify, but maybe a year or 2 years out, you'd be able to qualify. And if the job market is still tough and you buy a home, well, we can talk about house hacking. Well, it's a house hack. Well, that's where you, for example, sleep in the master bedroom, and then you rent out all your other bedrooms to maybe some of your UCLA friends. You know, that's exactly what I did about 2 or 3 years after graduating, and things like that. So long story short, I think resiliency can really be empowered if you feel empowered as a person in this economy, and financial literacy is key for that.
Thank you, Sergio. Yes, just saving your money. I think so many of my, friends and family who were older said, save your money, stack those bills. I'm like, no, it's okay. And, 10 years later, I'm not even close to getting into a home, right? So I feel like having those conversations of financial means and your personal relationship with money, we don't have those, especially as Latinos. So thank you for bringing that up, and start having those conversations now, because they're so important. And, even if you don't have a good relationship with money, talk to someone.
Exactly. Call me.
Yeah, Sergio. He does do good Instagram videos. I will say that. So question 5, we're going to shift gears. This is something I wish I knew about 10 years ago before I applied for grad school. But, so how did you weigh out the pros and cons of pursuing a master's degree, especially if you had to incur debt? Did you stop working? Did you pay it off to get a master's degree in terms of job opportunities and pay increase? Did it affect your ability to become a homeowner? Juana, where were you 10 years ago for me?
Sorry, I'm still just thinking about all the knowledge that Sergio just dropped, and how I wish I had known some of that coming out of UCLA. Just the last part of this question, did it affect your ability to become a homeowner, and talking about grad school? I don't even think homeownership was on my radar at all coming out of undergrad, coming out of UCLA. And it's something that I wish I had thought more about and could say that I was really intentional about, in the way that I think I was pretty intentional about graduate school. And I will say, you all are my first visitors here in my home. My husband and I recently bought a home, our first home, thanks Denise. And at 32, with, it took the two of us having our joint incomes, and we have 4 degrees between the two of us. But in many ways, your dreams of home ownership or other things, investing in stocks, starting your own company, it can't be affected by choices that you make about your education. And one thing that I learned in undergrad was that, one thing I'll say actually is that in undergrad, I felt like I was balling on financial aid. You know what I'm saying? Like, with a lot of support from state and federal grant aid, scholarship aid, including ULAA, I was able to make ends meet, get by through undergrad, and I still worked on campus, but I felt like people like me who had financial need were able to access resources to pay for school. And at one point, I remember just assuming that grad school would be that, would be an extension of that. And for many fields, it really is not that. And especially, I know many of us on the panel, right, an MBA, an MPA, MPP, these are professional degrees, and there is very little need-based aid for students who are pursuing that line of path. And so in grad school, you're really looking at merit-based aid and having to compete not just for admission, but for fellowship funding to then finance your degree. And I feel very fortunate that while I was at UCLA, I participated in graduate mentoring through the Academic Advancement Program, and through another program, a national one called the Public Policy and International Affairs Program, PPIA. And that taught me those lessons, that grad school is not free and there isn't need-based aid. And 2, that you need to really position yourself as a competitive applicant. I think many of us, especially those of us who are first gen, we feel like if we don't go straight into grad school, we're going to get too busy. Life is just going to happen to us, and we're going to be so focused on family and work that we're never going to come back to our graduate school goals. And one thing that I learned, at least from my field, public policy, is that graduate schools really want you to take that time to go into the workplace, to try out different roles, to test that policy is really the field you want to be in, and to also bring into the classroom those insights, that knowledge, those experiences about what is needed in the field of public policy. And so for my program, it was pretty common that people came in with about 4 or 5 years of experience. I had just under 4 years of experience. So I was a little bit, below average in terms of work experience. But that made a big difference for me to not only get into my program, but to get into my program with full funding. And coming out of an MPP program with zero debt is rare. My husband has an MPP as well from USC Price. And his story is the opposite. He financed his graduate degree entirely with loans. And now that we're married, we share that debt. So the good things, right? Home ownership we share. And then also, I don't want to say the bad things. Graduate school is still an investment. It's a good type of debt, relatively speaking. But now we share the debt as well.
Thank you, Juana. I know for me personally, I went to grad school right after, and so I graduated with a master's in school counseling at 23. I could not get hired for 4 or 5 years, so I wish you were there 10 years ago. But Denise, I think you just lay it all out about grad school.
Yeah, it's funny, Juana, you reminded me again, I'm just gonna go rogue again. You reminded me when I told my husband to co-sign for me for my school loans, he said no, and I was so pissed. I was so mad, but I didn't know. But if you're married and you get married, that's like something happens to your spouse, some loans, that's your debt. And so I was like, all right, touche. Okay, so MBA, right? To me, an MBA was non-negotiable. Like Juana mentioned before, you kind of plateau because you anchored yourself, or for me, I anchored myself in a very low salary. In 2009, I felt I wasn't going anywhere. And also as a Latina, as a woman of color, which I am very cognizant of, I wanted a stamp of approval, and I wanted something to validate me, right? Something that is like, something to validate me. And so I'll just put it out there. Loans, yes, I have them, 175 big ones in loans. And I'm okay with that number. And I'll tell you after why I'm okay with that number. But for grad school, I would say I would narrow it down to 3 recommendations. The first one, Josh mentioned it earlier, do your research in terms of what grad program you want. And what I mean by that is look at what do you actually want to do with that master's. Check out what jobs you could actually get with that master's, right? Because I feel like a lot of the Latinx youth that I speak to, they want to get a master's for the same reason I did, which is completely valid, right? But an MBA, I did a ton of research, and trust me, you get your return on investment. So that's what I mean. Make sure that the jobs that you're going to get afterwards, that they're going to be able to give you that income to pay for those loans that you get. So that takes me to number 2. Like if you're concerned about loans, you should be. That's very valid. But run the numbers, right? And what I mean by run the numbers, I mean, don't look at like best case scenario. Like if I get the best job that I could possibly get with this master's, I would say look at the worst case scenario. Like I might not get a job right away, or, I might get this salary range. Most master's programs, that they have that data for you. So you don't actually have to do it. Let the administration do their job, call them and say, what are the job prospects with this master's? And also what's going to be my salary range? What percentage of your students have a job after, graduating for UCLA Anderson School of Business? It's a high percentage. We have the #1 career center in the world for an MBA program. And so I did a ton of research, and I knew the point number three that's going to drive me to that is I knew that I was preparing myself for success. So I did all the pre-MBA programs you could ever imagine in the whole United States. And that prepared me because I knew I was going to incur all this loan. I knew it already. And so I was going to milk Anderson for all it's worth. I traveled all over. It was like Monopoly money. I was like, look, if I'm going to get some loans, bring it, because I know I'm going to make the money afterwards in consulting. And so I went to lunch with all my professors. I traveled all over the world. Everyone in my class knows me and knew me. And so that's what I mean by make sure you're getting your money's worth. And so that would be the 3 points that I would say for a master's program.
Thank you. And then Denise, can you drop in the chat box all the different programs and links? Because I think it's important.
Yeah, sure thing. I'll drop the 3 or 4 that I did.
Thank you. And then Josh, you're considering grad school again. Tell us your story.
So I jumped straight into grad school right after UCLA. To be honest, it wasn't anything special. It was I need to get my butt in school because I'm not going to go to law school. So what's the cheaper way of doing what I want to do, which was totally based off of the economy. So I went to grad school. I was worried about incurring debt, but I went to a program that didn't incur much debt. I'm almost done paying. It was in a master's in public administration program. It was a newer program, so it was cheaper. Did I stop working? Absolutely not. And there was a question in the chat that says, do you guys have side hustles? This is when my side hustles began. First and foremost, guys, it's okay to have a side hustle, especially if it's something that may be lower than a UCLA, I guess you can say like a UCLA powered job. Like my side jobs I've been a day laborer. I've been a Starbucks employee. Oh, but my side hustles, I've opened up my own catering businesses. I've worked on fishing boats, literally scrubbing people's messes if they get sick, what have you. I just threw out my ego. If you want to be successful in this world, unless you're a doctor, attorney, or something specialized, throw the ego away now. You know what I'm saying? Just throw it away. It will help you immensely. I'm telling you this not because I'm perfect, but because there was a huge chip right here, and it got knocked super hard off when I thought I was super cool and thought I had everything figured out. Every time I had something figured out, I got knocked down and knocked down. So throw it away. Did it pay off to get? Yeah, getting a master's degree helped in a really tough environment. My undergrad actually helped more than my grad degree. I didn't go to a prestigious school like Anderson. I went to Chapman, but I knew that I was going to adjust my market to go into Orange County. The reason why I went to Orange County was because it's a smaller job pool. So a UCLA degree in Orange County is a lot stronger than Los Angeles County. It's just simple math. One thing I did do as well, it's okay to live with your roommates. Like, guys, my parents. I lived with my parents till I was 29. It was embarrassing, especially when I was single, because you want to be independent. I'd be like, yeah, I live at home with my roommates. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. Like, how many roommates do you have? I'm like, 2. They're like, roommates, your parents? Yeah. And I'd be like, they live with me. So you can make up stories like, oh yeah, I'm paying for them because I'm that good of a son. But in your heart, you know, you're lying. Just kidding. So yeah, I lived with my parents. Did it affect my ability to become a homeowner? My master's specifically, no. My lifestyle did. And that's something that you guys are going to have to learn. I started making good money at a young age, and I spent good money at a young age. Sergio, God, I wish I would have kept in touch with you. You would have kept me straight. I'm barely becoming a homeowner now. I'm 33. You guys may think that sounds like a long time from now, but it creeps up on you. Trust me. These things start receding, start getting these, and then you're going to be the next panelist. So yeah, I would say Denise gave such great insight. Research before you go into a master's program. Don't just jump in. Work while you're doing it if you can. Don't ever think any work's below you, because some of these jobs, like the fishing job, it was cash. So had cash. It was helpful. And you know, homeownership, it's not a, I wouldn't call it something that's fleeting, but it's a lot more difficult now. My parents' house in 1994 cost $160. That same house costs $570. It's easy math, guys. It's a different story, so you can't compare yourself to the previous generations. Just know that you guys are doing what you can do. And like I said, you're Bruins.
And also don't compare yourself to others who have access to capital, so family money. I know when I graduated, I had a couple friends who had bought houses. I'm like, how is that even possible? But they got loans from their parents. So everyone has a different story. So we're going to move on to question 6. After college, did anyone move to a different city or state for a job? And what was the process like? How did you navigate these conversations with your family and close friends? And as context, we were chatting about how my dad wouldn't even let me move to UCLA in the dorms, and I grew up in Wilmington, which is 30 miles south, and even trying to get a job in a different state after, he was like, nope, not happening. How am I going to protect you? So I know that culturally these are things that we have to deal with and work through. But Sergio, I know you were chatting about that.
Yes. So in '08, when everything was happening, my dad, he's very protective. We're Central American household. This is like, just move back. We'll make room for you here at the house. And so that kind of just lit actually a motivation for me to like speed it up and really look for work, because I knew, I was 22. I love my independence. I love the LA weather. I mean, 15 years later, I'm still here. So I love it here. And so yeah, I knew that there was more opportunities for me in Los Angeles, and I just really took that motivation and applied more places, and then ended up getting work here. So that was an option for me, but I made it not an option. I wanted to stay here and prosper on my own, and I think it worked out for the best.
Thank you. And Juana, you took off. Tell us more.
Yeah, so when I was actually a high school senior, I remember thinking my plan, college was going to be my exit strategy, right? I grew up in between places in Buena Park and Norwalk, not far from where Josh grew up. And so I just thought I need to get as far away from here as possible. I went to high school in Orange County, and for me, with my, I guess, progressive values, it didn't feel like a place where I could grow and thrive. So I always had this fantasy in my head that I was going to go to college in New York. And I had really considered it. And in the end, I was just so enamored with UCLA when I finally visited that I surprised myself and my whole family when I went to UCLA. My dad, like you, Soleil, he told me, if you stay at home, I'll buy you a car and you can commute. Not that he had a lot of money, so that was a really big offer that he was making me. And I did the dorm experience. Like Denise, I try to just throw myself into everything, studying abroad. And I was really grateful to have done the CAP Quarter in Washington program my junior year. At the time, I had just turned 20. For those that know, everything in DC is a 21 and up kind of town. You want to go to a spoken word event, it's at a bar, so you can't get into it. And I wasn't used to that, doing undergrad in LA and being able to go out with my friends to, places all over the city that were 18 and up. So as much as I loved my experience in DC interning and doing research, I felt like I didn't really get to experience the city. I didn't really know it. And so I made up my mind that when I finished college, I was going to come back to work in DC. And remember, I still had at that time this romantic image of policymaking as working on the Hill. And so I kind of thought maybe I could get a job in policy research or communication since I was an English major. And I told my parents that that was my plan. And frankly, I didn't ask for permission. I'm the youngest of 6 and I'm a daughter. We grew up with very clear gender roles and expectations in my family. And I felt lucky that I had 2 older sisters who were very strong-willed, very independent, very driven in their 20s. And that was my example that I knew I was going to follow. I will say too that for those of you who might be the eldest in your family or the first to go to college, you might feel like a different set of pressure to stay home, and that, you know, you've been kind of the example, the role model, and you might feel this sense of duty to come back home to help and to give back, to contribute. And I think as the youngest, you know, I kind of got away with being able to be a little bit more selfish than those who are kind of the older sibling. I mean, you play that role in your family. So I will say that even though I made up my mind and my parents knew I was going to do what was good for me, what I had decided was good for me, it was scary because I knew that there wasn't a lot of financial support my parents could offer me, or even just advice on how to job hunt. I probably applied for like 30 or 35 jobs and didn't get a single call back, didn't get even a phone interview. And then it just took one. You know, I got, the day I was wrapping up finals, I got one phone interview and it led to a job offer. And that job was an academic advisor role at a university, so not higher ed policy, very related to work I had been doing as a part-time student worker at AAP. And it was conditional. My boss said, I'm gonna take the time to develop you, to invest in you, but I need you to give me 2 years. And that, I think, was a little bit of a reality check. You know, I wanted to go to DC, I wanted to be on my own, but 2 years felt like a really long time. And thankfully, one of my older sisters said, you know, 2 years is gonna go by before you know it, and it's not really much in the grand scheme of things. And she was right on. 2 years came and went, and I ended up staying for another 2 years before I felt ready to move on to graduate school.
Definitely, you know, sometimes our siblings act as our mentors, but I hope those who are on this panel right now or just listening that, you know, if you don't have those folks who can give you this type of advice, that we can serve or connect you to other people who can give you that healthy advice. Thank you. So we're going to move on to the next question. And I know that we're about to reach time. So for those folks who want to continue staying on, our panelists will be on to answer additional questions, but we're going to keep going. So for question 7, due to an economic downturn, I imagine that some of you had to take a job that you necessarily didn't plan to get. Did any of you face any feedback, criticism for not being in the industry that you set out for? Did your career aspirations pivot? How did you get motivated? And for context, you know, we come in as UCLA, or we come out as UCLA grads. Sometimes you leave your small towns and, you know, the pressure is you have to have this great job. So Josh, I know you've shared a lot of your journey. Tell us more.
Sure. So like I said, I'll be quick on this part. Didn't go to law school, couldn't afford it. I went to grad school, started working at Starbucks, and then I knew that, I think Denise was telling me before in our previous conversation, was that you can't get an MBA with no experience. I was going to go for an MBA because, like she said, that was like my ROI, my return on investment would be the highest with an MBA. But I was a political science major that had no experience except for working in Bearer, putting boxes together and books. So that wasn't going to work. So one of the biggest things that I did, I'm not going to lie, guys, I kind of jumped into this master's program. Not the best idea, but it worked. Don't be like me. But what I did to rectify that was you have to get a crappy job, usually. Maybe you can get a good one, but I had to get a Starbucks job. Not saying Starbucks is bad, but it pays very low, and I always got the weird hours. But the weird hours helped because I went full-time grad school, and then I was also able to intern for both the city of Whittier and the city of Anaheim at the time. With that said, it was really tough. It wasn't fun. I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. I just knew that if I was going to get a master's in public administration, I sure damn well needed internships with practical experience. So one thing I will tell you is, yeah, maybe your first job or your internships aren't going to be like super ideal, but as long as you can get a skill from it so you can put in your resume, remember, those are points when the recruiters are looking at your resume to offer you the money. Those are points that show you know, how serious they are about you or how serious you were to your degree, and definitely pursue through. Did I get feedback, criticism for not being an intern? Yeah. You know how hard it is to work at a fishing boat? I'll give you guys a quick story. I was working on this boat called the Freedom, and I was internal affairs for the fire department maybe 3 years ago. And man, I was wearing my fire department sweater. This guy goes, hey, why are you wearing a fire department sweater? Like, you didn't earn that. I was like, oh yeah. I was like, you're right. I apologize. And he goes, you know, my brother-in-law earned his sweater and he fights out there for you guys. And, you know, those are the guys that earn it. It's kind of like false valoring me, right? I was like, oof, that's kind of rough. I was like, hey, what's your brother-in-law's name? He's like, he tells me, I'm like, I'm like, cool, man. I actually know him really well. You're his brother-in-law? Cool. I'm internal affairs. So I'll make sure that I'll tell him how you greeted me so that, you know, you guys can discuss how we judge people. Moral of the story is, guys, I flip burgers on a boat. Don't judge people. There's no reason to be worried about what you're working on as long as you're working to the next goal. Guess what I did with that money, guys? All that cash I invested. Unfortunately, that investment went sideways, but I was able to make the investment. I've tried to create inventions. That didn't work. I tried to go invest in the small, risky items. That didn't work. But what worked was investing in myself and being able to redevelop that capital with my hard work and learning the lessons. So yeah, I wish I can tell my mom I'm an attorney. I'm not. For me, grad school was the easy way out. It's the only thing I knew how to do at the time. But like I said, I'm hard on myself, and that's something that you guys, if you're like me, need to work on. How did I get motivated? Guys, I lost my brother at a young age. Like I said, I got shot and didn't want to, I didn't want to raise my kid or my future kid or have a wife live in a bad neighborhood. There's less ability to grow, less educational opportunities. So, and I made a promise to my mom that I'd always take care of her. So these little side jobs, the side hustles, the full-time jobs, it's all a method to the madness. You know, you're going to figure it along the ways. You're going to fall. Embrace those falls. Those falls were so beautiful for me looking back because I learned so much. And the difference between a wise man and someone that's kind of ignorant is either growing from those falls and learning what steps to take moving forward, or just continually make the same falls, which you will. But it's okay. Standing proof, guys. I didn't have a plan going to UCLA. I didn't have family that went there. I didn't really have much, guys, but hard work and perseverance, especially during these times, and no ego. That's what you guys got. And I put my number down on the chat line so you guys can call me, text me with any questions. I don't care what time it is. My wife knows my heart is with folks I'm trying to help, especially the Latino community. I can give you a book of what not to do. And I can help you go and do what you need to do. Because as a 33-year-old, I'm kind of getting the basics of it. So yeah, sorry for the long talk, guys, but it's all real and from the heart.
Denise, round us out. Give us that knowledge.
Yeah, so I'll touch base on the self-motivation because I think that's one of my strengths. As a Latina from South Central, growing up in my household, you wouldn't be able to get where I am without some self-motivation. And so I have some tips. I have 5, so get your pencils ready because this shit is gold. Okay, number 1, I'm just kidding. It might not be gold. Okay, number 1, I'm just gonna say the 5 and then I'll touch a little bit. I'll give you a little juice on them. Okay, number 1, honestly, this comes from like a place of love, like Josh said, so don't judge me. Number 1, life is not fair and y'all need to get over it. Number 2, focus on things that you can control. Number 3, keep your fire alive. Number 4, be grateful for what you have. And number 5, which I added, follow your inner voice. Okay, so those are the 5. So I'll touch a little bit on number 1, life isn't fair, get over it. Frankly, I wish I had taught myself that at an earlier age. Similar to Josh, I had a chip on my shoulder. I was like South Central, Latina. I checked a whole bunch of fucked up buckets, right? And so I felt sorry for myself. But one thing I did correctly is I did what I could with the cards that I was dealt with. And so that would be the message that I leave you with. Like Juana mentioned, do not compare yourself to others. There will always be someone poorer than you. There will always be someone richer than you, prettier than you. You name it, there will be someone in this world, right? Focus on you and what you want in your life. Number two, which is essentially what I was saying, focus on things you could control. There's a lot of things you can't control. When you're applying out in the job market, you're not going to be able to control why the hell they didn't give you that job, right? You need to be able to pick yourself up real quick and move on to the next application and know that you're worth it, okay? Number three, keep your fire alive. Whatever you want to call it, your grit, your hustle, your whatever you want to call it, that thing that motivates you, that thing that wakes you up, and that thing that you feel in your, that burns inside of you, that tells you I am worth something. That thing that fucking got you to UCLA. Focus on that. Sorry, I'm just cursing up a storm. You know me. But that being said, be grateful for what you have. I think Josh mentioned it, like sometimes you're going through your journey and you're, you know, life is a series of like highs and lows. That's all it is. Know that it's temporary. When you're feeling low, know that something better will come. There's only way up, right? And so just be grateful for this moments, because at the end of the day, you don't want life to pass you by and you just thinking, wow, I could have enjoyed it more. I could have been nicer. I could have been this, or I could have been that. Really be grateful. And number five, and I think this is something honestly that has gotten me to where I am too, which is in a good space, I think, is follow your inner voice. There's going to be a lot of negative people sometimes, people that don't believe in you, people that are supposedly your mentors, and then they try to give you good advice, and they might give you advice out of a good space, right? Or like me, right, that I'm giving you advice right now and you might not like it. But at the end of the day, follow whatever your gut tells you. I'm a strong believer that all of us have our third eye or our intuition that knows the right thing to do. Listen to that with everything, even with like partners in life. And so those are my 5 things that I would say in terms of staying motivated.
Thank you, Denise. So we're going to go to our last question, just to close it all together. And it is about managing expectations, which we've been touching upon. But how did y'all manage expectations for your own and other personal or other people's timelines for achieving success? Juana, can you start us off?
Yeah, I mean, Denise just dropped a lot of knowledge. That was a lot of great tips. I think I saw some folks were actually writing it down. Share them in the chat, please, in case somebody missed them. Yeah, I think it's really true to not compare yourself to what others are doing, and to just think about what your own compass is telling you is right for you in your timeline. And to add kind of a personal example, I know we've been very focused on career. When I was coming out of UCLA, I had at that point been in a relationship for maybe 6 years with my high school sweetheart. And I think the expectation that everyone had, and that I even had, was that we were going to get married. That was the next thing. And yet I felt something inside of me that was a nagging voice telling me that there were still things I needed to do and experience, and a person that I needed to become before I could see myself joining my life with someone in that way. And so I think it's really important to be real with yourself. And sometimes that means also putting on your big girl pants, your big boy pants, and walking away from things that you know are not right for you in the moment. And maybe that seems like it doesn't make sense to anyone else, but you know when it's right for you. So part of me going to DC was also that chapter in my life of figuring out what I needed to do for me. And so along with not comparing yourself, you know, just being real. Sometimes people see the things that happen in our lives, like on social media, and it's all really curated, right? You post all the good things, and then people feel like, man, why am I not there? Like this example of being at home ownership at that phase in my life. That might be what some people see and think like, wow, Juana and Victor, like they got things going, they got things together, things are so easy for them. And maybe what they don't know is that for 5 years, we lived with Victor's parents, with my in-laws. We rented the back unit while Victor could put himself in school, so that we could get back on our feet financially after the two of us being in grad school for a total of 4 years. It took us 5 years after that to then get back on our feet financially, get jobs, save money, pay for our wedding, save up for a down payment. And those are things that, are not on Instagram, or people don't realize about your life and what it takes to get you to the goals that you set for yourself. So just know that, listen to your voice, and then be real, and don't be afraid of sharing your story for what it is, even if you might feel like there are pieces that are, less glamorous. There's no shame in how you get to your end game.
Thank you. Denise, do you have any more gold for us?
Yeah, pasó. No, I'm just kidding. So for me, I think first I'll touch base on two things. One is success, and the other is expectations. For success, I think, know that your definition of success will change. It changes, it evolves, and that's just part of growing up. For me, success was, honestly, it was getting out of South Central. It was graduating. It was not having to be in a toxic place, which that's what it was to me. I'm very proud of being from South Central, but it was toxic, for me. And so now success is different, right? Now success to me is being able to freaking have dinner with my husband. Honestly, I don't have time with all these deals I'm doing, but just know that money is not everything. Claro, it gives you flexibility, it gives you choices, which are priceless, right? But it's interesting because now that I have the money to buy certain things that I would buy before, now I don't buy anything. And so just know that. Don't put so much value on making money. I would say focus more on really your purpose in life. So that's about success, right? And then in terms of expectations, because that was a question about expectations that others had for me, or that I honestly think it's a blessing, but my parents not having any formalized education at all was kind of a blessing, because frankly, I don't think they had many expectations. My mom was just like, you got to go to school, but never asked for grades or had grades or nothing, and so the expectations were really self expectations that I had, that I was really tough on. And again, I see a lot of Latinx youth have these expectations of themselves. And I think we discussed this before in terms of, you expect to either save your parents from, like me, right? I want to save my parents from poverty. I wanted to save all of freaking South Central. I wanted to save any person that suffered injustices that I did, just stuff like that. I wanted to choose, and I still sometimes have to catch myself and like take a step back, right? And so a lesson that I learned, and I learned it at a later age, but I really want to drive this. If you listen to anything I say today, listen to this. It's not your job to save anyone. It's not your job to save your family, anyone in your family. It's not your job to save your community. What you should do is focus on yourself and really growing yourself and knowing yourself, because in that way you will really pay tribute to your family and do them good, right? Number one. And for your community, you're going to be able to help your community so much more. The more you are, the more you shine, the more your community shines, right? And so that's not to say, obvio, respect your family, because they probably did a lot for you, and respect your community, always be proud of them, but it's not your job to save them.
Thank you. And then Sergio, round it out for us.
All right, absolutely. All right, some gems on gems there. So growing up, I was mainly raised by my grandmother, who really actually was pretty much illiterate, wasn't allowed to learn how to read in Spanish. She grew up in Granada, Nicaragua in 1921. So growing up, school wasn't a big thing for her. She never really asked me about my grades, but she definitely let me know that a real man works hard, right? So growing up, I didn't know what I was supposed to do, but I just knew that whatever I do, I work hard. And then, seeing my dad's example, he worked at the post office and he hated it, but, a real man does the job even if he hates it. And he basically, taught me that the safe route, getting a government job, that's the goal, but it was weird because I saw how much he hated it, but it still kind of was implied that was the goal. So, those were the expectations, and I ended up, following in those footsteps, working at Target. It wasn't a government job, but it was, one of those set schedules. You have someone you report to, and, I'm glad I did it because it taught me a lot of lessons, but I definitely wasn't fulfilled. I felt really empty. I think I mentioned in our call last week, I don't want to use it as an excuse, but it fueled me to waste a lot of time, drink a lot, and just kind of numb out the fact that I felt like a drone, and just it was one of those things. But as I get older now, I'm not too focused on timelines. I have some really big goals, but I mean, to keep it real simple, how I define success is freedom, right? So I don't necessarily put much value in what I'm able to buy, but I will put value in, if I wanted to buy it, I could. So right, I have the freedom to do that. I can, because man, the anxiety that not having money gives you, I still have PTSD from it. Like for example, I have a pretty good credit score, and people ask me, how did I do it? Well, growing up, my dad had a really bad credit score. Actually, my entire family did. So there was no one available to co-sign or help my dad buy the house that we were renting. And so we went from a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, like really big house, or like 1,500 square feet. I don't know how big it was, to a 400 or 500 square foot condo. It was 5 of us, all because his credit sucked and he had a lot of debt. So I remember, I've always put a lot of focus into it, but I digress. The point is that, to me, as time goes by, finding ways so that we can make money work for ourselves, finding ways so that we're not a slave to money, but money is our slave. It's our tool that we use to liberate us, right? And so often we get so consumed trying to keep up with the Joneses. I know a lot of you guys just mentioned that. It is, because social media is everything. Everyone, especially now with COVID, where you can't really see people, everyone's extending themselves through social media, and everyone, pretty much 99% of people are, I do it too. Hey, I just opened this escrow. Hey, I just did this. Ooh, it's just a highlight reel. But if we could just focus on having deep connections with our loved ones and finding ways to be more free, then it'll make life that much more fulfilling, because we're doing things on our own terms, when we want, with who we want. So that's how I define success in 2020. And yeah, that's my take on that.
Thank you. And I also want to highlight the point that you said, Denise, is, taking care of yourself. In our run through, we were talking about mental health, and we didn't discuss it as much today, but if we can talk about that as well. I know I see a therapist, and my background's in counseling, so it's super important. Josh, I know you said something really great last time.
Go for it, Josh.
Sure. So yeah, I think for me at this point, in regards to success, it's mental health is huge. I think that growing up the way I grew up, and just seeing nothing but negative stuff, it was in me to really try to give back, whether that was when I first got my big boy job where I could, it was donating money to women and children's shelters because of family experience, or really helping the community. I was really overstretching myself. So on paper, I guess Facebook Josh looked really amazing, but real Josh was crumbling inside. So I just want to tag along what Denise said. Focus on yourself sometimes, guys, because if you don't focus on yourself, you're only one breakdown away from losing it all, and especially if you don't have the support system. With that said, I found myself, I have broken down before, trying to be the macho Latino guy that, knew everything, and not talking to anyone. I had my breakdown. It was tough. People throw around the words PTSD and anxiety. I suffer from that still, and it sucks, but it's doable. It may not be the perfect life, but I assure you, there are people here to talk to you. truth of the matter is I was a psych major for 3 years before I switched to political science, knowing that how am I going to help anyone else out when mentally I'm not ready for it? But I ignored it with school. I ignored it with trying to get a job in the job market. But once I got all those things, I was about 25 where my life was really set. Guess what happened? The demons came out and they beat the shit out of me. And I had to really deal with them. So my thing to you all, my message is take care of yourself. Your mental sanity, your mental health is huge because you can't do anything without it. So going back on that, as far as my expectations for timelines, my expectations still are horrible. I'm not where I want to be, and that's okay. You know, I'm hard on myself a lot. I'm sure 95% of you all are as well. If you're at UCLA, if you weren't hard on yourself, you wouldn't be where you are. So that's fine. But therapy helped, and talking it out, not being too prideful. You guys got to understand you're in a really weird time where we can't judge ourselves off of different generations. We can't judge ourselves off future generations. We're stuck in a conundrum right now that you know, isn't going to be the easiest to navigate, but it will be navigatable. You just got to take your time. I think one step and to the next step, you know, you can definitely manage it. But mental health is so important, guys, and making sure that you take time for yourself and not invest in everyone else. That would be my biggest encouragement. But success is relative, guys. Money doesn't buy everything, as cliche as that may sound. Balance. I learned in a poli-sci 115C. It was all about, you know, giving back to community, work, and thyself. So you want to have balance. You know, at the end of the day, you want to feel like you contributed to society. But remember, you got to come first, because without you, you can't assist with anyone else.
I love it. And I feel like that is probably your lingering thought, maybe, Josh. I'll let other folks do their lingering thoughts, and then we'll talk on the second part of the question. Sergio, what is your lingering thought?
Lingering thought is real estate hiring. Absolutely. Rates are at historical lows. So if you guys are interested in lending or in real estate transactions, hit me up. I mean, I don't know how long this is going to last, but this is like the gold rush of real estate in 2020 due to rates being so low and inventory being so low as well. Oh, how should folks reach out to me? I put my email, I can put my phone number, and also through IG, whatever you guys are comfortable with.
Perfect. And then Josh, I know your company is hiring, if you want to talk about it.
Sure. So I work for a healthcare company called Vitas. Most of the hiring is clinical, but at the same time, we do hire out. We're all over the country. So if you want to look at it, it's vitas.com. If there's a job in there that interests you, definitely reach out to me. I can either talk to you about it or get you in touch with someone that can give you kind of the minimum qualifications, what they're looking for, and your best bet into getting in such position.
Definitely. And as panelists are sharing out their information, other alum, if you're on this call and you want to serve as a mentor, drop it in the chat box. Put your link to your LinkedIn. Students, if you haven't ever reached out to a mentor or older alum, for instance, bug us. Sometimes we forget, life gets crazy. I love when you remind me, so keep bugging me. Juana, any lingering thoughts, and is your company hiring?
I wish my company was hiring. I would definitely jump at the chance to hire a Bruin. I'm the only California-based employee for my company, by the way. Lingering thoughts, I think I would just say, underscore this point that the uncertainty you all probably feel is the most rational, normal response to this highly unusual, uncertain circumstance that we're living in. And I just want you to know that, you know, you might look at this panel of, I know I look at my fellow panelists and think like, wow, they got it all together. They have their lives figured out. There are days still that I wake up and I just think like, oh man, how am I keeping this together? You know, we're at four months of the pandemic. I don't always get to see my family when I want to see them. I'm worried about health. I'm worried about lots of things every day. It can just be hard to focus on jobs and careers. So I just share that to say that the feelings of uncertainty, of fear, doubt, anxiety that you might feel are all totally valid and normal. And I guarantee that others who are your fellow alumni, classmates, are feeling the same way. And I think one thing I'll just close with is, lean on your community, not just to get that job. I know we've been talking about that, using your network. But guess what? Once you get into the workplace, there will be all sorts of challenges and new experiences that you're going to encounter, especially as a first-gen professional. And so it's important to come back to that community. And so we have been joking throughout this call, that we had our own therapy session last week when the panelists got together, but that's real. We just need that community from here on out. It's not just, the one time to get the job.
Definitely. I mean, we're all grown professionals, and sometimes we need that reminder, right, of we're all going through this together and we have similar experiences. And it can feel lonely sometimes, and that's okay. Reach out. Denise, any more gold?
I would say, so is EY Parthenon hiring? We're doing, continuing to do on-campus recruitment. So if any of you are looking into consulting, which I really, really encourage all of you, if you're not looking into it right now, to look at it in the future. It's really, really a way to continue your education. So that's one thing. And then I think just to echo what everyone else already said, please reach out. I always say this in every panel that I go to, and you'd be surprised how many people reach out, how many amazing conversations, and how many just like lifelong relationships I build with everyone. Because we really are committed to see everyone maybe not make the same mistakes we did, and really grow. We want to see everyone. We want to see our community, our Latino community, really, really flourish, because it's due time, people.
Definitely. And what are some ways that folks can reach out to you on LinkedIn? I know sometimes it's just you get a flurry of requests.
Yeah, I get a lot of requests. I'm so popular. No. I do get requests, but please send me a message. My network is gold to me, and I really protect it. So I don't add people unless they don't send me a message as well. And so please send me a message. I don't have any social media, again, because I try to focus on just inner and me, what's going on there. But I do have LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out there. I put in my email, and then we'll connect that way.
And for anyone who is listening, when you go to our website, we hyperlinked all of the panelists' LinkedIn profiles. So you just click on the link, and then you can easily just send them a message and say, hey, I met you at the ULAA panel, and there you go. What else? If anyone has any questions, I know, let's see. Someone asked about, is it possible to buy a 4-unit income property with 20% down, even though you don't have a full-time job, but enough savings? Maybe that could be a sidebar, unless it's a quick answer.
Yeah, quick answer. That's a really tough one right now, especially because of COVID. There's a lot of restrictions, but I mean, we can get creative, maybe a co-signer. Yeah, we can try to get creative, but that is a tough one.
Definitely. So now we're moving on to any other additional questions in the chat box. Alejandro said, sometimes I feel that as Latinx students and employees, we're harder on ourselves with imposter syndrome and all that. While others are working hard to stand out, I feel that many of us work just as hard or even harder to prove that we belong here. That is real. Definitely.
I would say be comfortable with that imposter syndrome, because it creeps up at all times in your life, especially as you grow up. Right now I'm in meetings with C-suite executives where I'm the only woman, I'm the only person of color, I'm the only, you name it, I am it. And so be comfortable with that. That probably means you're doing something right.
Definitely. And then something I also wanted to get back to is mentoring. How do you find mentors? How do you keep that relationship? What are some practices you all have practiced?
I could jump in on this one. I think it's really important after undergrad to stay in touch, including with your faculty, if you might go to grad school in the future. And I have had some mentees over the year who have practiced this a lot better than I have had. So simple things like, sometimes mentees would share an article that they knew I would be interested in because it's in our mutual field of interest. Sometimes I would get like Christmas or New Year kind of annual updates about their life, what they're doing, and share back success. I think that's a really exciting one that as a mentor I love to see. So maybe we have a conversation and I mentioned the PPA program. I'd love to know later if you applied, if you got accepted, what your experience was in the program. And so remember that the more you put into a mentoring relationship, the more you're going to get out of it. Usually the mentor is going to be really busy with stuff. They want to help, they want to be a resource, but they need to know what you're looking for. And the more that you share, the more they can then offer in return.
Definitely. And for those of you who joined a little bit later, the Career Center gave out did a presentation. So we'll send out some resources and we're recording the session so you can go back and look at it. But again, this panel is for you all and to reduce the learning curve because as you just heard, we all had to go through a lot of different challenges, but it's okay. Any other questions? Put it in the chat box. You can do it privately to me. Let's see, whoa, that's okay. There you go, perfect. This has been the best panel I've attended. Two exclamation marks, thank you. Yay. So if you wanna see more panels like this or any other topic matters, please shoot us an email, put in the chat box what you wanna see next. Again, we're here to serve as a support system and help you get your career started, or even if you're midway through, we still want to help you with just getting the right job or career. That's why we exist as a UCLA Latino Alumni Association.
Really quickly, there is a question that maybe Josh, you can answer with a yes or no. Was your program a traditional on-campus program? That Yomara is interested in pursuing a program, and it seems like most of the programs that she's looking at are geared towards working professionals and online. Would you be able to answer that, Josh?
Yeah, so it was Chapman's night. So it's a break off of Chapman that was headed for adults, but it was still traditional. So it was really helpful because they were able to provide nighttime programs for working adults. So yes, and traditional, but like everything else is blended learning. After I had graduated, they kind of evolved. And I'm sure now with like COVID, a lot of these systems, no matter what school it is, Pepperdine, USC, a lot of them are going to either blended or online. So I think as a previous, I know it's supposed to be yes or no, but as a previous recruiter, it doesn't show or delineate when you get that master's degree, whether or not it was online or not. So as long as you get it done and you have the relevant experience, then you checked out in our book. But I totally get it, because when I jumped in that program, I was like, what the hell is a Chapman? You know, I came from UCLA, so totally understand.
Thanks, Josh.
So before I say thank you to our panelists, if everyone can do the little clap emoji for them on the Zoom feature, that would be great. Thank you all so much for just sharing your gold, as Denise likes to say. And again, we're all here to help. You'll see displayed our current board of directors. I think they're still on, but there's Jeanette Palacios, who's our current president. Laura Romero, who I think is still on here. She's our VP. Carlos, I think you're still on there. He's our secretary. I don't know if Adrian joined us, but he's our treasurer. I am your past president. Christina is our membership chair. Angela is our scholarship. Cesar, who introduced us or started off the panel today, is our university relations. Lena is our finance chair, and then Nikki is our community relations. Again, if you want to gain some experience, some skills, just practice your leadership, join one of our committees. It's been really great. I've been with ULAA since 2013. And in some ways, this was the only leadership opportunity that I could get, because sometimes your work doesn't let you move up, unfortunately. But with all that being said, Vanessa says, thank you for taking the time to do this. Look forward to receiving any follow-up emails about job search and upcoming career fairs and events. So I think that is it. Thank you everyone again for your help, for your advice. Thank you for joining us. I think we had over 50 people in attendance. Share it, love it. We will post this on our website. Cool. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our panel for today. And be safe, everyone.
Go Bruins.
Go Bruins, I know. It's been a while.
Go Bruins.